My name is Aaron Sito. I'm the curatorial manager of Asian and Pacific art here at the Queensland Art Gallery, Gallery of Modern Art, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this artist talk with Yuki Kihara. Yuki and I were just talking as we were making our way to the gallery that we've probably known each other for more than 5 or 6 years. That, in a previous life, we've worked together here in Australia, and we were remarking that Yuki has such a broad-ranging practice that increasingly moves beyond the locales of Samoa, the Pacific, New Zealand, into Australia, and most recently into Germany and elsewhere. She's truly embarked on, in the last couple of years, on some major projects all around the world. What's fascinating, I think, for me, I mean, the earliest projects that we worked on, there's a very distinct relationship with performance. I mean, of course, she works in a whole range of different image-making techniques from photography, but the performance works that she does has a very clear relationship back to very specific forms of dance. And I think that relationship in the visual arts context of performance is probably quite unique. So I'm not going to be speaking very much. It's actually Yuki will be introducing her work and talking through some of the things that interest her. So welcome, Yuki.
Testing, can everybody hear me? Okay. First of all, I would like to give thanks to our creator that has enabled us to come together to gather in this wonderful event, and to also acknowledge the tangata o le whanua, as we say in Samoa, the people of the land to whose lands we currently stand on today. So my name is Yuki Kihara. Yuki Kihara. Actually, next year, my name is going to be Yuki Kihara. I will no longer operate as Shigeyuki Kihara. So should you want to Google me later on today, I will remain as Shigeyuki till the end of this year. So a little bit of a background about myself. I have a Japanese name because my father is Japanese and my mother is Samoan. And the meaning of my name, Shigeyuki Kihara, this is my dad's interpretation, means naked autumn trees clothed by the falls of gentle snowflakes. And this is really ironic because I was actually brought up in Samoa majority of my life, but my name evokes a period of time, a transitional time in the highland mountains of Japan between autumn and winter, when all the leaves have fallen from the trees, and then now the trees are being greeted by gentle snowflakes. So it alludes to this time of transition in this liminal space of, you know, from somewhere going somewhere. I have a background in fashion, so I'm a qualified fashion designer. And I think a lot of what I've learned in fashion school has seeped into my own practice. How I got actually introduced into photography and video was that I have a life as a former fashion stylist, working in fashion editorial magazines and newspapers in New Zealand and internationally. And I was actually disappointed with the New Zealand fashion industry for the fact that I wasn't able to use the kind of models of color that I wanted to use in the editor. So I've realized that, okay, you know, I'm going to create my own stories with my own people. So that's a little background about myself. So first of all, I would like to direct your gaze to this body of work over here. So this is where we stand up, darling. And camera, you face this way. Okay, can we all see me? Okay, so there's a character named Salome, and it's a character that debuted here, right here at the Asia-Pacific Triennial, the fourth Asia-Pacific Triennial that took place in 2004. And I was part of a performance art collective called the Pacifica Divas. And it was a collective that was brought together, it was commissioned by APT. And the character of Salome actually debuted at the opening of the APT. So that was back in 2002. So 13 years later, I come full circle, and now I'm actually showing my own work independent of the Pacifica Divas. Salome, this is Salome. So I often use my body as part of the artistic material to realize a variety of characters informed by Samoan post-colonial history. And the image of the character of Salome is actually being informed by a photograph that was taken by a New Zealand colonial photographer by the name of Thomas Andrew, where he actually photographed a Samoan woman dressed in a Victorian morning dress. Yeah? And I actually came across this photograph when I was a fashion student mining the archives of Museum of New Zealand. And so often I would come across, so many stereotypical images of Samoans posing as dusky maidens and noble savages. And I suddenly come across this photograph of a Samoan woman dressed in a Victorian morning dress, looking so comfortable and looking directly at the camera. And I was really fascinated that she would become this muse that would challenge the representation of Samoans. And I also like the idea of the Victorian morning dress because it was obviously, when Queen Elizabeth died, when Queen Elizabeth's husband died, the whole British Empire had to wear black, and including Samoa, as a sign of mourning. So I wanted to follow in that line of inquiry about mourning and, what is there to mourn for within the Samoan context. There's a lot that we could mourn and lament about, but it's not often brought out into the public surface in Samoa. So I've decided to dedicate a body of work solely about the idea of mourning and lament in Samoan culture. So what you see here is Salome dressed in a Victorian morning dress. And then she's actually, her choreographic movements are informed by the movements of the tsunami that was responsible for the death of 186 people that was lost as a result of the tsunami that took place in the island of Upolu on the 29th of September in 2009. And then the duration of the video is run about 8 minutes and 16 seconds. And then this is run about the same duration that the tsunami impacted in the island, resulting in the deaths and the destruction of the villages. So the video work also references this the motion photography technique that was initially developed by photographers such as Edward Muybridge and Etienne Jules Marais. It's a stop motion photography. So what you're seeing here is like a delay of my choreographic movements, and using the stop motion photography to animate the movements of the tsunami. Based on the accounts of the survivors of the tsunami. So the title of the work is Siva in Motion. So Siva means dance in Samoa. And the dance that she's performing now is called the taualuga, which is a prestigious dance that's only performed by a son or a daughter of a high chief or honorific person in the Samoan community. And then so by performing the taualuga, it's actually honoring those that lost their lives in the tsunami. So yeah, you see her hand come down, forming the shapes of the waves. And this is a silent, dance performance. This particular work actually starts off with Salome facing her back to the audience. So in the Samoan cultural context, for a dancer to face their back towards the audience is actually considered offensive. So there's subtle things that are in there that I'm actually breaking Samoan cultural taboos. But the idea that she actually, begins her performance facing her back to the audience, and then she turns around to the audience, and then she goes back again, I want to, evoke this idea of infinity. Okay, so this was the work that was commissioned by the Oakland Art Gallery for their group show entitled Home AKL, profiling the contemporary art practices of Pacific diasporic artists living in Aotearoa, New Zealand. We good to go? Okay. Okay, so that body of work was made in 2012, and then decided to take Salome back to her origins in the islands of Samoa. So does everybody know where Samoa is? Thank you. Because whenever I'm in Europe and the United States, everybody's like, Samoa, where's that in Somalia? Right? So anyway, I'm glad you all know where Samoa is. Okay, so the body of work that we have here, these are the photographs. The photographs and the video work was acquired by GOMA to be exhibited in the context of APT. The title of the photographs is called Where Do We Come From, What Are We, and Where Are We Going? So this is a painting that was produced by Paul Gauguin in 1897. And this painting was the last and the largest painting that he created before he passed away. Obviously, when Gauguin was producing this painting, he was thinking about death all the time because he was sick. I don't want to go into too much details. And then, so I was really interested in how Gauguin posed this question to himself about the meaning and the existence of life. And then I felt that this question was very pertinent to Samoa, given that we recently celebrated our 50th anniversary of independence from the New Zealand colonial government since 1962. So when we look at this body of photographs, so, the Gauguin's, where do we come from, what are we, where we're going, the we is actually directed to Samoans, for us to answer this question and to imagine our own future. Because I think I remember this is one time Michel Foucault talked about how those that interprets history has the power to, those that interprets history has the power to determine, those who interprets the history that has the power to interpret the future. And then for so long, Samoan people, for 62 years, we didn't have the opportunity to determine our own future. And so now that we've celebrated our independence, 50th independence in 2012, I felt that this question was a really important question for us Samoans to answer. Where do we go in the next 50 years? And then so what you see here is Salome coming back to life. So obviously Salome, she is a character from 1886. She is revived back into the present to see whether the aspirations that she had when she was alive has been met by the descendants, only to see that there's all these social, political, and economic changes that have occurred. And then she's looking at this variety of different landscapes, thinking about, whether the aspirations that she had back in the day has been met by their descendants, which is us. Hi, Rachel. I have to come over this way, if you don't mind. Okay, so this particular photograph here, what you see here is Salome observing variety of different sites in Samoa. Obviously, these 6 photographs allude to 2 main themes, which is looking at Samoan post-colonial history and the effects of natural disasters. And so you have this photograph here of Salome observing the post where the German flag was raised. So in 1899, there was a Treaty of Berlin that was signed between Germany and the United States to annex the archipelago of Samoa, to divide them between German Samoa and American Samoa. And then, so from 1914 to 1962, Samoa became, New Zealand Samoa, it became a colony of the British Empire. And then so what you see here is, coconut trees. You usually sort of imagine coconut tree as, in a bright, passive landscape. But what you see here is this idea of the apocalyptic paradise. I deliberately chose to make the photographs black and white, so they look like documentation. They look like a documentary or a document, an archive of the 19th century. But in matter of fact, these are photographs that are taken in the present. What I wished GOMA would have acquired, in addition to these 6 photographs, is the photographs of Salome going to a variety of different places in Samoa, which is like the airport, the resort, the mall, in order to talk about the development, the kind of development that are currently taking place in Samoa. And then so this here is a primary school in the village of Saleapanga. This primary school was devastated by Tsunami Galu Afi. And Galu Afi in Samoan means monstrous. And then the local people called the tsunami Galu Afi because it was monstrous enough that it could devastate the whole village. And then so what you see here is a school that used to have like tables and chairs and blackboards and windows and a roof. But the tsunami came and basically engulfed everything. And what you see here is the traces of life that are evoked in the vines that are creeping on the floor. So this is it's in Beach Road, in the capital city of Apia, in the island of Upolu. And this is formerly a German Colonial administration office, and then so when the New Zealand government took over, they took over this building. And this building, this area is also significant because this is where our Tupua Tamasese Efi, who was our independence movement leader against the New Zealand colonial administration, was shot point blank by the New Zealand colonial administration. And this photograph here is a church. It's a church called Ngelui Tausi, the Church of the Guardian Angel. And it was a church that was devastated by the Cyclone Evan, and then it tore the roof off, and you have this pool of water on the ground. Yeah, so it's the aftermath of the cyclone. This is the village of Lelata. It was one of the villages that was most devastated in the island. The cyclone, so the cyclone took place on the 12th of December 2012, and then by then I actually got the money from the Arts Council to fund half of the project. But it was really awkward for me because, I was really grateful that I got the grant to produce this work, but at the same time, is it ethical for me to actually, go and produce these series of photographs, in the midst of misery? And, I had plenty of discussions with my family. They opposed it, but I went ahead with it. And the reason why I went ahead with it, because I felt that it was really important to use the art as a tool for documentation. And after this trip in Brisbane, I fly back to Samoa, and I'm going to have an exhibition of these works at the Mad Gallery in Motuotua in Samoa, so that people in the island could see, what I've done. Yeah. And then once again, you have this idea of the coconut tree as a signifier of paradise, but it's been destroyed. Okay, so the last photograph here. So this is a photograph that was taken in the village of Vaimoso. So Vaimoso hosted was the headquarters of the independence movement, the indigenous independence movement in Samoa during the New Zealand colonial administration. So the movement was called the Mau. So the Mau means to hold on. And obviously, you know, the building was degrading, so the people in the village had to, you know, clamp it down. And then for the 50th anniversary parade, the people in the village rebuilt the model, which went onto a float. It was a big float. And then they brought the model back into the original place. And now there's a petition from the village asking the government to actually rebuild the original model so that we can forever remember the independent struggle of Samoa from colonialism. So other themes that I explore on this is, yeah, like what I said, you know, like the current development that's taking place in Samoa. So Samoa recently came from being a least developing country to a developing country. And our hourly rate, the minimum wage is $2.30, which is like your $1.20. Yeah, so we still got a long way to go in terms of addressing the issues of poverty, gender equality, yeah, you know. What do I want to come out of this? Well, you know, to think about, you know, what is our global responsibility to each other and how each of our actions, you know, affects many different places, including the islands of Samoa. So that's kind of like a broad brushstroke of the body of work that I've made here. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But thank you so much for your time.